Let's start with Brandon in Arizona.
All right. Brandon, you're live with Eric and V. How are you doing?
I'm good, and yourself?
Doing good.
Pretty well. Yeah. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, today I wanted to talk about the divinity of the Bible, or the divine origins of the Bible.
Okay. How do you know whether or not something is divine? What separates a divine thing from a non-divine thing?
Well, it's there's just lots of nothing that can be explained in our physical world as to some of the things that occur in the Bible.
Okay.
Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Journal of the Royal Statistical Society.
Hold on.
Publishes
Hold on, Brandon. Before we dive into the Journal of the Royal Historical Society or Statistical Society?
Statistical
Society?
Statistical Society.
Before we dive into that, I'm questioning your logic here. You said it can't be explained, right?
Well, this is, the statistical science.
Well, I'm just asking you, yes or no. You're going to give me something that can't be explained, and you're saying that there are things in the book that can't be explained. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so why are you trying to explain it?
Well, I'm trying to prove that that God is the author of the book. That's why the Bible even says that Jesus is the author and finisher of our faith.
Sure. So it sounds like you're offering an explanation to something unexplained. So why are you saying it's unexplained in the first place?
Well, I'm saying that I don't know how anybody can explain other than something outside of our universe is the author of this book.
Is it possible that you just don't know? Is it possible you don't know? I mean, even if we granted the book was entirely true, is it possible that you just haven't found, or we haven't found an answer yet? How did you rule out literally everything else?
Well, I mean, again, I think being, born again is an experience.
I was born again.
I can't.
Me too.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah. Pardon me?
We were both born again. We understand what that means.
I specifically identified as a born-again Christian for a significant amount of my life.
Yep.
Well, a lot of people claim that they're born again, but they don't really understand what it all means. So, I mean, the evidence that you were not born again is, you hold no stock in the Bible. You compare it to Harry Potter books.
Right. And until you can give some good reasons not to, we're going to continue to. If you have notifications going on in the background, like a cell phone, something.
Yeah.
If you could mute it, it's my ADD is terrible.
I apologize.
No worries.
I have my little tablet going off right now for some reason.
That's all good. So I would advise that you take a look at the No True Scotsman fallacy
And the God of the Gaps fallacy.
And
oh yeah, I understand. We've been over the No True Scotsman, but I mean the Bible does talk about false converts. So I mean, there is a difference between true believers and people that think they believe.
Well, Brandon,
is it possible that there's a No True Scotsman fallacy in the Bible?
Not from my perspective. So, but just to ask, are you guys by any chance familiar with what's called equidistant letter sequencing?
So I'm right now still kind of stuck because it feels like we're moving through something that I really don't want to move past yet. And so I don't want to dive back into some of these questions and then it sound like I'm not listening to you, Brandon.
Sure.
So I just kind of want to touch base on a couple of these. We've talked about fallacies. Do you understand what a fallacy is?
Sure, it's a mistake.
Not quite. It is not. It's reasoning that does not necessarily get you to truth. It's not a good tool. Right. So let's say, what's a good coincidentally true example?
Apparently, there are more people drown. The number of people who drown in a year is goes up and down with the number of people who the amount of ice cream eaten in a year.
Okay, so would that necessarily mean that ice cream consumption is directly tied to drowning deaths?
No, that would be a correlation versus causation.
Right.
It turns out that more ice cream and more drowning happens in the summer because you're at the beach more.
Right.
So it just seems like one might cause the other, but that would be fallacious reasoning to assume that one was caused by the other.
Right. Now, what you could do, Brandon, is you could say that eating ice cream causes drowning. And when you look at the statistics, it's going to bear out looking that way. But that's only because it's coincidentally true, not because there's a causal link. And so that's what I'm trying to bring to your attention when I talk about fallacies is I'm not saying you're wrong, therefore I'm plugging my ears. You know, what I'm saying is the reasoning you're giving is not sufficient because it cannot get you reliably to truth. And so why would I listen? So why would I give you an example, or why would I go on to listen to your examples if they're just examples of flawed reasoning?
Well, I think it would be hard to argue with, statistical scientists, which is, statistical math is the highest form of math that we know of. These are.
Can you answer the question instead of deflecting?
What's the question again?
Why should we spend time listening to an argument that we know is not going to lead us necessarily to truth?
Well, I think you got to lay out, different pieces of evidence in order to put the entire picture together. You know what I mean? You got to have all of the pieces of puzzle to be able to see the whole picture.
I agree, but the amount of evidence doesn't necessarily change how impressive that evidence is. You can have a lot of evidence that's very flawed, and just because you have a lot of it doesn't mean that it's going to be any more convincing. So if you have these puzzle pieces, and a lot of them are based on fallacious reasoning, those puzzle pieces aren't going to help you. So basically what we're saying is, do you have anything that is not those particular puzzle pieces?
Well, I'm trying to get to it as far as, okay. This is, the Royal Statistical Society.
Just so you know, I am keeping an ear out to see if you're using that flawed logic, because if you are, it means you're not listening. And what you would be doing essentially is saying, hey, I got all the statistics about ice cream sales. That way I can back up the drowning statistic. They're not, it's just bad logic. So I'm listening, but
that's not even the direction I'm going.
Cool.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, the Royal Statistical Society publishes a magazine called the Statistical Science Magazine, and in Volume 9, 1994, so that you guys can look this up yourself. It was also an article in Bible Review in October of 1995. Equidistant letter sequencing in the book of Genesis is the name of the article.
Okay, what is equidistant letter sequencing? Is that like the Bible code?
Basically, yes. It's these statisticians put together a computer program, and they ran several different books through it to find these. Basically, it's like they take a letter and then say 4 spaces or 6 spaces down the line. They take another letter. They find all of these mathematical sequences, and in the book of Genesis, when they ran it through this, and this is this is a jury-reviewed article with the Statistical Science Journal, the Royal Statistical Society. They only publish juried articles, and the jury is a bunch of mathematicians from Harvard and Princeton, and their quote is, after running the book of Genesis through this computer program, that their quote is, "The phenomena cannot be attributed to anything within the known physical universe." And these guys are all atheists and agnostics. They don't hold any stock in the Bible, but they were blown away when they found this, that when they ran this program, they found the names of people, where they were born, where they died, all the way up to the 1900s, different names of all of these people.
Sure, and
so they were
okay. So let's break this down a little bit, right? First off, a basic Google search can tell you a whole lot about the Bible Code. And when you're talking about the Bible Code, that is another example of Texas sharpshooter. What you're doing...
There's several Bible codes.
Yeah. And people have used that same reasoning, right, that same code to make whatever books they want say nearly whatever they want it to say. So there are examples, in 2 Chronicles 1:17, I pulled up, Kilroy was here, was used with the Bible Code. Hebrews 2:17, Kennedy shot. Numbers 28:3, Bugs Bunny. Leviticus 10:7, Hello Kitty. And people have applied it outside of the Bible to other just works of fiction and have found tons and tons and tons. What that is it doesn't even rise to the occasion of, I mean, at that point, aren't you just rearranging letters to say whatever you want it to say?
It also says here, and I'm in the article, and just from a cursory look, it says that they were skipping over words and choosing other words that were more quote-unquote significant and noteworthy, I think the word is. So they were actually skipping over words and finding the ones that they wanted to look at, it looks like.
And so when
you should read the whole article,
yeah.
So that's why I mentioned where you can find it, because it's not just that. I mean, why would their quote be, the phenomena cannot be attributed to anything within the known physical universe, and these are mathematicians that are probably the most brilliant people on the planet.
Well, if they're backing up your claim, they have to be the most brilliant people on the planet, right?
I'm just curious, did you read the whole paper?
I have, yes.
And did they actually...
It made the hairs on my neck stand up.
Okay, well, how about this? What if I told you that there was a Bible code, and in it you were able to, using the same methodology, look up and see very, very famous assassinations, right? And some of these examples are Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. There we go. Soviet exile Leon Trotsky. And that is the entire word, right? It's Soviet exile Leon Trotsky. The Reverend Martin Luther King. The assassin Sirhan Sirhan. John F. Kennedy. Abraham Lincoln. Princess Diana's death is in there. Would that make the hair on your arm stand up?
I mean, I guess I'd have to check it all out, but I mean, it's
cool. That's in Moby Dick.
Let me take it one step further.
No, hold on,
these
guys, Brandon. That's Moby Dick.
Okay.
So, again, this is now an example of exactly what you're saying, right? Is rearranging words so that you can get it to say whatever you want it to say. When you're saying the atheist mega geniuses were all baffled, why? I mean, dude, a cursory Google search will show you all of the problems with it. I mean, I appreciate that you called in with something different to talk about. Do you remember the homework that I gave you last time?
As far as what? Investigating if whether or not time travelers fulfill prophecy, or?
To watch the episode, and because last time I said I wasn't going to be open to you calling again unless you had watched back, right, and listened to that and give it some thought. What did you think about that? Do you still think that an all-knowing, all-loving, ever-present creator of the entire universe is more likely than time travel?
Well, I don't know where when you read the Bible, God isn't this all-loving, I mean, he is love itself, but
that makes no sense.
We were made in his image. He hates people too. I mean, if people that are not born again, meaning that they've been cleaned by the blood of Jesus and they're a new creature now, they're not his children. They're still children of the devil.
Wait, so God hates us?
God also...
I would
Does that
say
mean God
he hates you.
Well,
no, I wouldn't say
I mean,
that he hates you, but he's not. He's definitely not happy with your current state of unbelief. It's impossible to please God without faith.
That sounds pretty terrible. Brandon,
I mean, you know,
you're throwing out a whole bunch of stuff, and it just feels like it's flying right over you. You know, and I'm saying that in the kindest way possible. God is love. What? That's like saying God is itchiness. That makes no sense.
There would, if without him, there would be no such thing as love in our.
Okay, can you demonstrate that at all? Show me that. How? Prove that with any degree of convincing. Like how? How is that the case? Does that mean that without God I can't love?
I mean, you know, now I feel like we're just spinning off of the topic of proving that the divinity of the Bible.
Well, I mean, so you're using the Bible code, which has absolutely been debunked, and anybody who wants to look it up can absolutely look it up. It is a significant, true waste of time, and one that I think is totally not worthy of not only our time, but Brandon, it's not worthy of your time because it's conspiracy. It's conspiracy. Hold on, Brandon. Brandon, it's conspiracy theorist bull. I mean, look it up. Do a little bit, a modicum more research.
In order to further with what research I've done, they ran the Samaritan Pentateuch, which is what all of the modern Bible translations are based off of, versus the Masoretic text, which the King James Bible is based off of. In the Samaritan Pentateuch, these codes did not exist.
What was their methodology, Brandon?
You know, you need to read the article.
No, I mean, if you read it and you want to talk about it, how did they determine which letters of the Bible they were going to pick out? Or did they just run a computer program until it started spitting out words that were English?
No, they followed specific patterns on each of the words in the Bible, like, you know,
what pattern?
Read the article.
Every seventh letter, that kind of pattern.
Correct, stuff like that. Yes.
Yeah. And I just told you in Moby Dick, all of these different predicted assassinations. That is an example, one of many that have been given that clearly debunk that idea. The entire idea that if you pick whatever letters so that it makes, you know, it says whatever you want. You know, the funny thing is if you look at the letters before, you know, this amazing thing and after, it's all nonsense all the way up until you see something that's in English. And you only pick out the wins, but you forget and you throw away the misses.
Mm-hmm.
So was Moby Dick investigated by the Royal Statistical Society?
Using the methodology that they used, they were able to come to that same conclusion with that methodology. So
who is they?
Yes.
Who is they? Who is the they that did this?
Let me see here. If you want to vamp a little, I'm gonna.
I think what we're talking about is important, and how you can come to this conclusion regardless of what book you're looking at, if you have the right patterns, or if you look for long enough, or if you only count the wins. But my question then is, okay, so even if we were to grant you that we can't explain why these numbers or these letters are showing up in the order they are, that still gets us to a God of the gaps fallacy. That still gets us to we don't know, therefore God. And that's still not enough. That's not conclusive in any way.
Well, I mean, for me, it's, you know, he's putting his signature on a specific text. Like I said, they ran the book of Genesis with the Samaritan Pentateuch text. It didn't work.
Yeah. So
only in the Hebrew Masoretic text did this code show up. Right. They ran through hundreds of different books, maybe Harry Potter, maybe Moby Dick. The code's not there.
It is. It was pulled up. In fact, I just pulled this up. So the Bible Code was a book that was written by, is it Michael Drosnin?
I'm talking about I don't know who Michael Drosnin is.
Is the person who popularized the whole Bible Code thing, right? He famously said in 1997, when my critics find a message about the assassination of a prime minister encrypted in Moby Dick, I'll believe them. So here's the answer.
Sure,
Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, President Rene Mao. So the names that I listed were a specific refutation in the exact example that person gave. I don't know how you can go any further, Brandon. How can you possibly deny the holy book that is Moby Dick? I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? Look at the code.
Yeah, well, I'll check out this guy that did the deal on Moby Dick there. But I mean, there are several people that have written on different types of Bible code, like Ivan Panin.
Cool.
He's a major mathematician.
Did they use a different methodology?
Yeah, he has a completely different code that shows up.
Right.
And did they find different results? Or were they finding the same thing regardless of the methodology they were using?
No, he has completely different results and a completely different code than equidistant letter sequencing that the Royal Statistical Society did.
Yeah.
I just figured, these guys hold a lot of credence because these are, atheist, agnostic, total.
How do you know that?
How do you know? Yeah. How do you know the faith background of this group?
You don't need to be an atheist to be a mathematician.
Sure, no, but I investigated this because I don't like to just call up with blank bullets with you guys because I know you're pretty well versed in debate.
I appreciate that.
Well, we definitely want to pull up when there's bad reasoning because we want to teach, and this is a teachable moment, and the teachable moment is Brandon.
Well,
if you use the methodology of picking every few letters, and even if it's equidistantly spaced, eventually, just the law of averages is you're going to find patterns like that. It's going to happen, and it can be used with any book of sufficient size. And so...
Just so you know, the Royal Statistical Society said the odds of this happening are 1 in 50 quadrillion.
And yet it happened...
discovered in the book of Genesis.
Bullshit, Brandon.
That's their quote.
Yes. Okay, so here's the deal. If you're talking about those exact letters in that book, then literally any other set of letters that you're going to find has that exact same statistical likelihood. If I were to pull up a bunch of nonsense letters that did not make a word using a similar algorithm, I can say, hey, that has the same statistical likelihood. It's only interesting if it pulls out, words that are in English. But dude, it's entirely unremarkable. It's entirely unremarkable. It's like saying, hey, what are the odds of you being born, if we count all of the sperm that you came out of? Right?
But your
what are the
problem
odds?
is they ran the book of Genesis through with the same book in different text.
We heard you, Brandon.
Pentateuch. Okay, well, it's the same book that they ran through, and the code's not there.
Okay, Brandon, go back and do some more research on this. So the Bible code is something that I specifically looked into when I was coming out of religion. And it was one of the first things that I saw as truly conspiracy theorist nonsense. And even among Christians, even among born-again Christians, it's argued as something that should probably not be considered seriously in the larger circles because it is so out there and because it is so easily shown to be unremarkable and untrue. So, I mean, and don't get me wrong, you can use the methodology to get those things, but the idea that somehow bolsters the idea that the Bible is this holy book, is divinely inspired, that doesn't get you there because you can do that with other books.
Right. Now, if every person who ever created a Bible code ran their own algorithm and their own methodology and they all came back regardless with the same message, then maybe I would be interested in continuing this. Right. But you can take a text, especially a very long one like the Bible, and run it through 5, 6, 100 different methodologies and algorithms, and you're going to come up with 5 or 6 or 100 different messages, which is what it sounds like has happened. Because it's random. It's
the program. the program that these statisticians did, it doesn't work on any other book. They've done many different books. No code.
Okay. You're using
your
the same
argument
reasoning.
doesn't stand. That's my point.
Oh, I totally understand that as long as you're using that reasoning, it's not going to make sense. What we did is highlighted various ways going in circles around this so that we can show you from different perspectives and different reasons that this is absolute bunk. And what you've done is gone, well, but I don't understand it because I still want to believe it. Brandon.
Nobody's debunked the royal statistics.
Yes, they have. Look it up.
I have looked it up. Show me where.
Did you look it up in order to prove it to yourself, or did you look it up to try and refute it? Because that's going to get you very different information.
I looked it up and made sure that I had all my facts straight because, I would like to help you guys actually hold some stock in this book because, you can just dismiss a whole lot of arguments for God by getting the Bible off the table.
Agreed.
Well, definitely your God.
If you can't use the Bible to prove God at all, then it's, now you got a major uphill battle as a believer.
Yeah.
So that's why
So Rational Wiki, if you look up the Bible code, if you go down to the references, you'll see a bunch of different links using BibleCodeWisdom.com to input their own methodologies using those statistics, and we're able to pull out whatever the heck they wanted. There are tons of people who've taken this test and have tried it and have come out with, and depending on how snarky they are, have found some really, really hilarious, things that you can make the Bible say. I'm entirely unconvinced. So
you've read the Bible before, right, Eric?
3 times.
Okay, so and you're familiar with the whole Passover festival and how Passover even started, right? Because I want to show how Moses and these guys, they had no idea what they were writing.
Okay, let's pick that up. Let's pick that up on the next call because we've spent a significant amount of time on this one so far.
And maybe do some research about Moses and his alleged authorship of certain books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the documentary, The Moses Controversy, is a real good one.
There are a whole... Brandon, thank you.
Sure, man.
Take care.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wake up and I wonder why I do this. And then we get to talk to Brandon.
Makes it all worth it.
It does, because I don't think that Brandon, you can lead a horse to water. It doesn't mean you can make him drink.
Yeah.
But it does mean that maybe someone who is convinced by it can think about it and go, maybe I should do my own research. Maybe I should look into it.
Right.
Is it possible that if I take every 5th letter of this paragraph that I can make it say another word? And what significance should I ascribe to it? Because it's not only is it unconvincing, personally, I think that it degrades the whole thing. It just, even when I was a Christian, it just felt icky.
Yeah, and also you have to wonder, okay, well, say this was God's signature on the Bible or whatever. Everybody who did not have access to the Royal Statistical Society's results are basically fucked. So, it's still massively problematic, even if we grant literally everything Brandon was saying.
Yeah, but, there's only so much you can say before you find that it's just going in circles.